Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michiel Nijboer. I'm a senior investment advisor at Royal HaskoningDHV. Good to see you all here, and I welcome the opportunity to discuss with you the opportunities for hydrogen in one of the hardest to abate sectors, which is maritime transport. And we'll talk about the options, about some of the challenges that we face, and about the initiatives that we are currently seeing. For those of you who are not familiar with our company, we are an engineering, project management and consultancy company. We're headquartered here in the Netherlands, but we work across the globe with just over 6,000 people and based in 26 countries. The mission statement of our company is enhancing society together, and I think that enhancing the role of renewable hydrogen and making sure that it plays the role as an impactful solution that it can be is a vital component of that. And as such, we're very proud to be a sponsor of this event. We work across the entire value chain of hydrogen and power to X. We provide comprehensive support for investment decisions with technological and economic and commercial feasibility studies, environmental social impact assessments, EPC and project management services, with a focus on Europe, Middle East, Africa and Australia. To give you the storyline of my presentation today in a nutshell, I think it's clear that the world needs to substitute fossil fuels in every sector if we are to reach the climate goals. But doing so creates many co-benefits as well. We'll be talking about that briefly. Hydrogen is viewed as an important piece of the puzzle, but I think it's important to bear in mind that it's also a very precious resource, and it's also not the only option in many sectors. Maritime transport, and especially deep-sea shipping, is one of those hard-to-abate sectors where hydrogen is likely to play a role, but substitution does pose several challenges. And finally, I'll talk to you about the initiatives that are being taken at various levels, government level, private level, to promote the uptake of alternative fuels. I think if I say that fossil fuels are great, I hope that I get your attention. They are great in a way. They are convenient, generally affordable, and they're available most of the time. Their volumetric energy density is high, the technology is mature, it's standardized, they're relatively safe, or maybe at least we've learned to manage and accept the risks that are associated with them. But it's clear for the sake of the climate that we need to substitute them with cleaner alternatives. And I think, as I mentioned, it's very important that we realize that we're not doing this just because of the climate, but replacing fossil fuels also creates a number of co-benefits, such as improved local air quality, reduced noise from transport in some cases, reduced deposition of nitrogen, especially important here in the Netherlands, and reduced subsidies on fossil fuels. As I mentioned, renewable hydrogen is often viewed as an important piece of the puzzle in the decarbonization of our society. But it's a precious resource, at least for quite some time to come. At the moment, only 1% of all hydrogen used is produced from renewable energy. The impact, the footprint of grey hydrogen production at the moment exceeds the greenhouse gas emissions of Germany and the UK combined. It's clear that hydrogen needs to come from renewable sources, and according to the IEA net zero scenario, it should grow to more than half by 2030. Ramping up the production of low-emission hydrogen will require huge investments, and different applications will be competing for scarce renewable hydrogen for a long time to come. The picture that you see on the right-hand side is an illustration for the Netherlands, Belgium and Germany, and it illustrates the gap that is expected based on this analysis for 2030 and 2050 in terms of demand that is likely to be unmet if no additional measures are taken. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the ladder of Liebreich. I particularly like this version of the ladder. What the ladder does is it shows those sectors, a ranking of sectors where hydrogen makes the most sense, ranging from unavoidable, meaning there is virtually no alternative, to uncompetitive, meaning hydrogen does not make sense as a substitute. I like this version because it also illustrates what the alternatives are for each sector. As you can see, shipping is one of the hardest to abate sectors, with biofuels being one of the few alternatives. As I mentioned, it's important to bear in mind that any sector that finds a different solution means that more hydrogen will be available at better prices for other sectors. And I say this because sometimes hydrogen is viewed as a Swiss Army knife or a solution for all, and I think it's important to bear in mind that there are alternatives as well. Maritime transportation, and especially deep sea shipping, as I mentioned, is one of those hard to abate sectors. Hard to abate meaning substitution of fossil fuels is very difficult. And you might wonder, why is that? Is it because of the technology? There is a recent report issued by DNV that says that the onboard technologies will be available likely within the next 3 to 7 years. So yes, there are challenges there, but it's probably not going to be the main limitation in the longer term. I think when we talk about the difficulties and the challenges of substitution of fossil fuels in maritime transport, we should distinguish different carriers, as I've done on this slide. I won't go into this into too much detail. My colleague Piyush Katakwar is speaking at 3 p.m. at the main summit about the different carriers for hydrogen. What I would like to mention is that shipping lines are currently exploring different options. We see port authorities also exploring these options, but many also prefer to remain fuel agnostic, if I may say, leaving the choice to the market and taking on a facilitating role. Many of the challenges that we face are also related to the infrastructure that is required in the port to make this happen. Due to the low volumetric energy density of some of these carriers, a lot of space is going to be required to store these volumes. Safety is a major issue. Here in the Netherlands, we recently saw the DCMR, which is one of the environmental protection agencies in this region, voice its concerns about large volumes of ammonia being transported. Often this occurs in urbanized areas, putting a lot of pressure on scarce availability of space. Finally, one of the major challenges in this area, and that goes for any of these options, is the fuel availability in the quantities that we need, at the place where we need them globally, and at a price that is affordable and competitive. At the moment, we're seeing a plethora of measures, policies and actions coming from all sides. The IMO, which is the International Maritime Organization, part of the United Nations with 180 member states, has in the past been accused of making slow progress in this area, and shipping has long been able to dodge the bullet, so to say. At the moment, there are high expectations in terms of the IMO. Its environmental committee will meet this summer and discuss a number of measures and initiatives that are on the table, aiming to put a price on carbon, to promote fuel efficiency of vessels and fleets, and to enhance the uptake of cleaner fuels. Perhaps this is also partly driven by the initiatives that we see coming from the European Union in the Fit for 55 package. This package is addressing both the supply side with the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Regulation, the demand side with the Fuel EU Maritime Regulation, requiring ships to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 2% already in 2025 and 80% in 2050, and also providing funding with the means that come available when ETS is expanded to shipping, which can be used to promote innovation in this sector. Shipping lines are exploring the options. We see LNG, we see methanol, we see dual fuel engines. This is driven by a combination of regulation, pressure from the market, and strategies from the companies themselves. While the current fleet and new orders for ships are still largely conventional, we do see that they are exploring the options for alternative fuels, currently with a focus on LNG, but we also see other options. Clearly, in the long term, LNG is not a zero carbon option. Last but certainly not least, we see the ports moving in this area as well. And one of the good examples, I think, here that really is inspiring is the Green Corridors initiative. One example, and you see the photo here on the top right-hand side, is the Memorandum of Understanding that was signed between the Port of Rotterdam and the Maritime Port Authority in Singapore. Both have a strong position as a bunker fuel hub. It constitutes one of the largest trade routes on the planet, carrying large volumes of cargo in large vessels. And I think this approach can really have an impact. It's a combination of enabling infrastructure and supply of alternative fuels along the route. It's a cooperation between different stakeholders along the value chain, enhancing also public support. Oh, I see that's the next speaker. I thought there was one more slide here. I would like to thank you very much for your attention. We are located here in the booth A80, that's Alpha 80. If you have any questions for me or my colleagues, we'll be there the whole day. As I mentioned, my colleague Piyush Katakwar will be here at 3 p.m. to deliver a speech on the various hydrogen carriers. Thank you very much.